Hi, Tabitha Paul here with my windshield survey. So I surveyed the community in Aurora around the Comitis Crisis Center, and I'm just kind of going to go through the list here because there's a lot of things to talk about. So with housing, I saw kind of a big variance in housing. Some of it was very kind of run down and not cared for, like cardboard in the windows and no care, like there's no landscaping. You could tell just people lived there to live there. And then 2 doors down there would be somebody with a really lush lawn and a very well-maintained home, and so it was very kind of all over the map. Definitely older houses, probably between the 50s and 70s. I didn't do a whole lot of research on it, but based on the architecture, I'd say 1950s to 1970s for when the homes were built, with some definite renovation in some of them since then. Same thing with the yards, like I said, varied. Some people would have done nothing to their yard or had dead grass or overgrown grass, and then other people put a lot of thought into what they were doing, which my takeaway was that was kind of reflective of the population, because there were, older people who were having garage sales and yard sales, and you just could kind of tell that they had lived there for a very long time. And in my experience, the longer you live in a community, the more pride you take in it. So I think that maybe that was some of more of the well cared for homes, along with kind of the gentrification that seemed to be happening, which I'll cover later on, but it seemed like there was definitely some of that going on too. One of the very positive things was parks and public spaces. I think anywhere around Denver here, we're very fortunate because we have so much green space and so many parks and so many trees and so many greenways and trails and just very accessible areas to gather and to exercise and to be outside without having to go very far for it. So they're just in the areas that I drove through, kind of trying to figure out what was going on in the neighborhood. I saw 3 parks and a greenway. So I saw Park Lane, Generals Park, Sand Creek, which also had a greenway. I think with the exception of healthcare facilities, parks were what was most prominent there. There aren't any nearby cultural or like entertainment things really. All of the museums and libraries and stadiums and everything are further up into Denver, so they are accessible. The RTD, the light rail, runs right through, like right by the hospital in Aurora, and then I saw a lot of bus stops as well, so you could get to these places relatively easily. And I double checked, so the cost for the light rail is pretty reasonable. It's anywhere from $1.50 to $25 for a 10 ride pass, depending on whether you want to be local with 1 to 2 stops or regional with over 3. So it seems like it's definitely an option to get around. Like I said, the streets were it's very green, just everywhere you go. Kind of mature trees and very appealing in the whole area. The sidewalks and streets weren't really in very good shape. A lot of the local markets had graffiti on them and really old signs, things that had been put up who knows how long ago and just not really updated since then. But when you get closer to the hospitals and the college, that's kind of where that gentrification, I think, is stemming from, is a lot of people who work there and go to school there and want to invest time and money into having things that are nearby their place of work so they don't have to commute so far. So closer to that and closer to 225, there are more updated restaurants, new condos, new apartments, things like that. And I can see that being a big issue for the people who've lived in that community for a long time, because with those updates and with that growth comes an increase in cost of living, and we're not really doing anything to assist these people with covering that difference in cost. So if you've been renting an apartment for 30 years, all of a sudden you can't afford it because they just put, some new restaurants in down the street, and it's just, it kind of makes you like, oh, that's exciting, they're building this stuff, but what does that mean for the people who are already here? With a mix of large and small businesses, kind of, a few large businesses, I definitely saw a lot more small businesses, a lot of local markets, a lot of local like taco shops and things that are just smaller, like more independently owned. I didn't see any grocery stores. I didn't double check on Google to see if maybe I just didn't drive past one. But I saw a lot of small markets and no big grocery stores, which again is kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like, it's great that there's local businesses, but are they lacking in what they're providing to the community? Traffic over in that area can be really terrible. Kind of hard to say for sure right now. Same with the environmental quality. It's a little bit different right now due to COVID. So the community is mostly Hispanic. I did see some older white couples, but most of the people I saw were younger Hispanic families, a lot of Mexican markets and things like that. So we only drove by one church that was Catholic, but I'm sure there was more, so I Googled and I saw Christian churches, Lutheran churches, a big diverse setting there. And as far as health services and safety, there are a lot. Anschutz is right there, Children's is right there. The crisis center that I'm doing clinicals at is right there. The police station is right in that little alcove there as well. There are no 2-year colleges, but there is Anschutz right there for a 4-year. As far as political activity goes, I didn't see anything, but that is the area the same night that I drove by that the protest started for Elijah McClain. So there definitely is political activity. I was a little surprised that I didn't see more like Black Lives Matter signs, just because they're so prominent kind of everywhere right now. So I was a little surprised at the lack of obvious political influence in that area with how highlighted it is nationally right now. The outstanding assets are definitely the schools and the healthcare and the access to transportation. And the challenges, I think, are mainly that economic growth and gentrification that's going to cause the cost of living to be a lot more difficult for the people who have been there. I'm over my time, so I'll hurry this up here. The barriers that I saw, the biggest one was the grocery stores. If you don't have a big grocery store or a big pharmacy, that can cause a lot of kind of obstacles to taking care of yourself and finding the specific things that you might need. And the important takeaway and kind of feel that I got was that it felt very much like a community. Even without seeing very many people out from the pandemic, it seemed as though people were involved and knew their neighbors, and I think that's an important thing because it shows that you have people to lean on and people who are on your side. So yeah, that was the feel that I got for the community. Sorry about the time. Thank you.